This is on Measure X. Laurie Van Arsdale.
We're going to have, I forgot to tell you this last time, they've got 20 minutes.
Okay, well, okay, I'll trade mine. Good evening, my name is Laurie Van Arsdale, and I am the co-chair of the team on Measure X. Measure X is a bond measure that the school board has put on the ballot. The most important thing, and we'll explain that as we go, and if you have more questions about it, please ask us. The most important thing that caused me to be willing to promote and get on board with Measure X is that it leaves your tax rate at the same that it is today for the school bonds that have previously been on. So that made me stop and think. The other thing is I was part of the city council years ago, and when we first started working on other bonds, I knew that our schools were growing like crazy, and I knew that our school system was very old. We have 28 schools in the system. They're not only in Hemet, but they're also in Idlewild and Anza. And we have some very old schools. The previous bonds, Measure E, built new schools. The latest bonds helped repair and redo and fix and also build new schools. And that will be explained in just a minute. So I would like you to know this is how we're going to do this. I am here because I'm an advocate for Measure X. I have Vince Christopherson here because he is from the school district, and he will explain to you why they thought they needed to put on the ballot. So he can't advocate, I can. He will educate, and I will be the advocate. So that's the difference. So when you ask questions of him, they need to be for education. Me, you can ask whatever you want, really. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is Vince Christopherson.
Thank you, Laurie, and it's a pleasure to be here. And she's right. I can talk about facts, and that's what we're going to talk about, is just the facts of what the Measure X is about and why we are putting it on the ballot. And then I can also answer questions of fact, too. So this is just an orientation for some of you who don't know a lot about Hemet Unified School District. It is a very large district. It covers about 650 square miles. It was established in 1966, and it was a conglomeration of a number of other school districts at that particular time. You can see we have about 29 sites. 12 of them are K-5. We have 3 K-8 schools. We have 4 middle schools. We have 4 comprehensive high schools, and then we also have some alternative education. One of the other things I want to mention on this particular slide is the motto. You see the motto there is, the motto in it is to be the premier choice, and that's something that is an aspirational goal, and the reason why we came up with that motto is because, you know, as education's changed over the years, when you and I went to school, it was, you lived in a neighborhood, there was a neighborhood school, it was determined that that's the school you go to because that's where you live. Nowadays, people have choices. And so what we're saying is we want to be the premier choice, not the default choice. And in order to become the premier choice, we're implementing a bunch of other programs. This is just a map of Riverside County, and you can see the outline right there where Hemet Unified School District is, and it's a pretty large area. So one of the things that we're doing is we're developing these 3 goals, and these 3 goals is what's helping us to get to our ultimate premier district aspirational goal. So teaching and learning, these are our focuses, teaching and learning, multi-tiered systems of support, and also culture and climate. And those are the things that we're trying to change. And part of that has to do with our facilities too. So as we move forward, part of these aspirational goals and the teaching and learning goal, we are implementing all of these programs. Some of them have already been implemented, some of them are in the process of being implemented. So you'll see that the full day kindergarten is something that we have started to implement this year. And so we have 5 school sites that are actually full day now. Now just to let you know, when we build schools, and this is 50 years ago when we were building most of the schools, when you have a kindergarten class plan, every class was expected to have, every classroom was expected to have 2 classes in it, an AM class and a PM class. So most of our sites were built with that in mind. You have AM kindergarten or PM kindergarten. What happens when you decide to have full-day kindergartens? You still have the same number of students, the same number of classes, but you need double the classroom space in order to accommodate the full day. So that's a need right there for bond money. Preschool. Preschools have become almost ubiquitous now. As we move forward, we're finding that 3-year-olds is where it starts. So education doesn't start when you're in 1st grade now. It starts when at 3. So if you're a child and you're not going to preschool, when you get to kindergarten, you're already behind. And so that's one of the things that we're doing is we're putting preschools at most of our sites. Again, our sites were not originally designed with preschools in mind. So again, those are facility needs that we need to be able to expand. We're doing things like career centers at most of our high schools, bringing them up. STEAM is another big thing. This is science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, and that's curriculum that we need to change how our physical structures are in order to accommodate some of this curriculum, and so those are big needs for us on the education side. Dual immersion and international baccalaureate programs are things that we've just started up too. So dual immersion is a program where a child comes into starts in kindergarten, moves right up through our system, where 50% of the class is non-English speaking and 50% is English speaking. And as they move through the system, each one learns the other language. And what we found is that those kids that develop the 2 different languages do better overall in school moving forward. So those are really great programs. An international baccalaureate program is one that we just started this year at West Valley High School, and that's where a student can go through that program and get out of high school with up to 60 credits, 60 college credits, and go to college as a junior versus starting off as a freshman. Great program, and it's something that, again, so we need some additional things to redo what we're doing at some of the school sites in order to make this thing work. So this is prior bonds. This is something that Laurie had alluded to. Measure T, there was a Measure E, and that, she's right, we did a lot of building of new schools with that. Here's some of the things that we did with Measure T. Measure T was a bond that was originally $149 million. For those of you who've been here long enough, you remember in 2006 that bond measure got passed, and then Measure U happened right after the recession, the Great Recession, when all the property values fell, and we were stuck with a bond that we couldn't access the money for. So the other $49 million we couldn't get to unless we did something, really crazy, and that's sell capital appreciation bonds, which would have cost the taxpayers about 3 times what it would normally have cost without the capital appreciation bond. So we decided Measure U was something that we put it about to reauthorize that amount on that new bond. The other thing it did for us, it allowed us to change a little bit of the project list, because when we passed Measure T, we had no idea that Hemet Elementary School was going to sink and it needed to be totally rebuilt. And so we were able to change the project list and put Hemet Elementary School on that list. And as you may know, it's been rebuilt, it's been open for the last 2 years, and it's probably the showcase elementary school in our district. It's beautiful. And that's where the dual immersion program started out to get last year for the elementary kindergarten program, and then this year now they have both kindergarten and first grades in that program. Okay, so here's some of the current needs. I'm not going to belabor some of these points, but safety and security, as you probably well know, is paramount, and it's something that's become more and more of a need throughout, not just here in Hemet, but across the United States. So we are looking at bringing in more security in our sites, security cameras, electronic locking systems. So instead of having the key locks, when we do lockdowns in the school, and we do lockdowns almost every week, depending on what's going on out in the community, electronic locks allows us to have a central station where we can press one button and it totally locks the entire school down automatically. And so those are additional safety features that we're looking at putting in. Okay, so right now, you say, well, what you all that other money that you had, right? And so, yeah, we did some of those programs that I just showed you on the other screen. We have just a little bit of money left, and we're planning to do some projects at some of the local school sites, and mainly the security area right now. But the problem is it's not enough. So when we've done our analysis of our facilities, looking forward over the next 20 years, we actually have over $500 million worth of need. Some of that will be new schools, but a lot of that is replacing a lot of the portable buildings, restructuring some of the existing buildings, modernization, and then just new roofs, things like that. So with $150 million, we have the opportunity to leverage, because there's state matching funding. So a lot of these school sites are eligible for modernization funds, about 49% of our schools between now and 2027, which means the state could actually match up to 50% of the cost of the projects. But we have to have the other 50% to put up, and this is why we need the bond money. Okay, just a few things on some pictures on the security screens and the cameras and the security entryways. When you look at some of our school sites and you walk in, those offices sometimes are just open. And that's the way we used to be. Everybody was open, come on in. We welcome everybody into the school. Well, nowadays, you don't want just anybody walking into your school. You need to have barriers in place. You need to have ways where people just can't walk in the front door and walk straight past the check-in desk and go right to the classrooms. So these types of barriers that we're looking at putting in at most of our schools. Just some of the pictures of some of the facilities that again, this happens over time. Roofs need to be replaced, and things like that. Here's just some of our people who attended our schools and now are working with our district, and they've said some things about their thoughts on what we need and how it's important to have good facilities. Now here's the bottom line right here. This is what you all been waiting for. How much is this going to cost me, right? Because taxes are taxes, and nobody wants to pay more taxes, and we understand that. And that's why, if you look at the line, the red line going across the top, and you see those bars, those yellow bars right there is how we would sell the bonds. So we would look for, and if you look back at the 2017 bar, that bar is where your tax rate was at 2017. And we're saying we will keep that same rate, and we just want to extend it out so you keep paying the same rate for a little bit longer time. And then as we have either assessed valuations go up or the other bonds that we have start to drop off, and you see those other colored bars underneath the yellow one, they start dropping off because they start to be paid down. Then we see the gap open up, and that's where we can sell the new bonds. You don't have to pay an additional rate increase, and then we can get our projects done like that. So that's my thing, and I'm sticking to it. So, any questions? Yes.
What happens if this measure is if the bond is defeated?
Excuse me, ma'am. Kind of jumped out there ahead. No worries.
Good, sorry.
He's got new knees.
She's got a loud voice. She doesn't need a microphone.
What happens if this is defeated? I mean, if you run out of money, how will you then prioritize the things that you don't have the money for?
Well, if we don't have the money, we won't be able to do any of the projects. I mean, that's just the bottom line. The money that we get in school districts in our general fund, we don't get enough money to do capital projects. So the capital projects are always done through either local bonds and state bonds, and usually a combination of both local and state bonds. With the operating budget that we get from Sacramento for our daily operations, we have some money for deferred maintenance projects, which we do set aside and we use. but it's just not enough to keep up, and it's also not enough to build new schools or really do the renovations for some of the new programs.
Mr. Kasakos, I heard you say that there were matching state funds available through 2027, is that correct?
Well, no, what I said was
The question is, are matching funds available?
Every 25 years, a school site becomes eligible for modernization funding. So we have 49% of our schools will be eligible for modernization money between now and 2027. So that doesn't mean that there's state money available for that period of time. That just means.
You never know about that state of California. You know what I'm saying.
Okay.
Anyway, my second question was, it's a comment. Hemet Elementary is the premier showcase of the downtown area. I would be an advocate of total modernization, if you can call it that, of so many of the downtown area schools. I'd like to see them replaced and look like Hemet Elementary.
Well,
that's just me.
Yeah, and I think that we agree with that. It's just a matter of how you can do that. Hemet L was a unique situation. As you know, it was falling apart. The understructure, the land underneath was sinking, and it was not safe. In fact, we probably, that site, believe it or not, just received an award last year for the ingenious foundation system that was put down. And if anybody had passed by there while they were doing that, we got all these comments about, well, are they digging a pool? What's going in there? Like, no, that was the foundation system that was going. I had to go down 50 feet and put these pillars in there. That it was just amazing what they did, but it's work. So that the normal process is not to tear down a whole school and rebuild it, but Hemet High, if you take a look at what we did there, Acacia Middle School, you see what we did there. We did bring it up and make it really look much better than what they have there.
Okay, our next question.
Hi. Sorry, Sharon. My name is Hank Alberts. I've been here for 13 years, and I have two questions. Number one, the mayor gave a speech here a while back, and being a senior, maybe I didn't interpret what he said was correct, but I was under the understanding that 85% of the students in Hemet school districts are subsidized. Is that correct?
No, that's not correct. It's only 83%.
As I said, I'm 80, so I can two papers. Doesn't do me any good. Secondly, regarding security. If your security is going to be anything like TSA security, forget it.
Yeah, we're not planning on TSA security. I'm sorry.
Okay, there was a question on the other side of the room. Be right there. Talk amongst yourselves. I'll get over there quickly.
Somebody's got a phone ringing.
There's one of our existing board members sitting right here, and he's going to ask a question. I'm not sure what it is, so it makes me nervous.
He's supposed to talk,
Actually, I'm not going to ask a question. I'm Gene Heigl, and I live here. Of course, most of you should know who I am. And I am on the school board, and I appreciate the folks out there that voted for me. It's been a fantastic experience, and I would like to tell you that Hemet is on the move. The school district is really moving. Our superintendent and the team that we have is doing a fantastic job. And I don't say that very often about things, but this is truly happening. And one of the things that we do need is schools that are secure and safe and look good and kids enjoy and want to go there. We don't want old, dilapidated buildings that they just don't want to be there. Learning doesn't happen in that kind of an atmosphere. And these bonds, even though they're not what we totally need, they are necessary to have so that we can have a quality learning environment for all of our kids. And it's true, we have 83% of our students are on considered, they're called unduplicated personnel, which means like the foster youth, low-income youth, non-English speakers, and so on and so forth. And the state's made a commitment to those people. Those are our future students. Those are our future adults. They're the people that are going to run this country. Whether you like it or not, they're the ones that are going to run the country, and they should. And they made a commitment, the state made a commitment to increase funding for those kids, and that's helped Hemet out quite a bit. So I encourage you to vote for this bond.
Thank you. Is there a question? Thank you very much.
Just to wrap it up, because I did pay attention to our timer. Sharon.
You have a question? My name's Bob.
Thanks, Mike. I don't know if I should ask this of you or Jean. The thing's gone. Okay, so now I have to remember what it said. Short question. At what point, you're promising us no tax increase for now for 2018. At what point do you forecast a tax increase, and at what percentage?
The tax rate, the way you're taxed is at a rate per 100,000 basically, or per thousand if you drop the decimals. That tax rate will be the same as it was in 2016-17. There was some kind of glitch in 2018's taxes. So that did a bump down. I don't know if you noticed, I did on my taxes. But they will be staying at the same rate as the bond was implemented. So those two bonds that were on there will stay the same rate as what, when it passes, as what it was then.
I can say it's the rate's about $124 for 100,000. That's the rate that it was in 2017. That's that same rate that we would just extend versus adding into it.
Okay.
Well, it would be for as long as the bonds are sold for. So there'll be a series of bonds sold. They'll be probably sold for 25 to 30 years. So it depends on how. Yeah.
All righty. We are out of time, so our last question is right here.
Oh, this gentleman was, let's let him have one too.
I got two statements. Number one, when a politician tells me something isn't going to cost me anything, I grab my wallet and run my out.
And that's why I'm not a politician.
Secondly, in your protection for the children, I don't see anything in there about armed service personnel or retired police officers or volunteers.
Yeah, we already have SROs on most of our sites.
And or anything dealing with teachers being prepared to take care of that. Okay?
Yeah, and
the guard, the gates, and all that stuff is good, but you can throw a bomb right over that stupid fence. It's been done.
Let me just address that head on just for a second. We just hired a new director of security at the school site. It's an ex-police officer, was the captain in Escondido City. He's come in and done quite a bit of renewing some of our security measures, in fact, redoing most of our security measures. And so he's got a plan that's being executed right now. We've just reorganized all of our school resource officers who are armed police officers or sheriff officers. And we are also retraining all of our security staff, which are our campus security and things like this, and they will all be retrained and be more effective when it comes to the security of the students. We take the security of our students very seriously, and so this is part of the facility part is definitely one of the things that we need to have, and the bond measure is going to help us do that.
Okay, now this is our last question. We're over time as it is.
My question is, I didn't see in your talk anything for the non-college bound kids.
Okay. And
Or yeah, there was nothing about grades. When I was in high school, we had dual track.
Okay.
He's having trouble with his microphone, so.
Talk loud.
There it is. Okay, it's back on. Okay. And I'm sorry I skipped over that part. CTE, Career Technical Education, is definitely one of the areas that we're looking at for the facilities, and that's one of the things that if you look at the bond measure and the project list, career technical education upgrades and facilities. In fact, we were just having a conversation just the other day about having like a training for like electricians, HVAC people. We already have 2 ag programs. We have looking at medical service programs, things like that. Things that are that we take a look at across this county area and say what are the jobs that are going to be needed. And there are surveys out there that tell us that these are the areas that are increasing, and so those are the areas that we're trying to focus our CTE programs and funds on.
All righty, thank you very much.
Just one final thought. Just remember, rate stays the same, and you get a match of $75 million, up to $75 million for all those schools that qualified for the $150 million that you have. So you get good value for your money. And that, I know you said if a politician says that, you grab your wallet, but I really know, because I had to do the research on that one. Thank you very much. And there are school board members getting ready to come up and speak with you. You'll have more school questions that you're able to answer. I want to say when you do have a question, because they probably will come up as they're speaking, you can hold up your cards and we'll run and get them. They will be read off to the candidates now.
Thank you, thank you. So, we're going to go